Hello and welcome to this presentation about Stash Hub, the sewing organizer app. My name is Yvette and I'm going to be running you through a bit of background as to how we started the app, an overview of what you can do in Stash Hub, and then some benefits about how using Stash Hub can help on your sewing journey to improve your relationship with your stash. And then we'll just chat about some of my favorite features of the Stash Hub app. We can have a Q&A in the comments section, so if you've got any questions, just drop them below in the comments and we'll help you get up to speed on Stash Hub. So before we get into all that, I wanted to introduce you to the people behind Stash Hub. So I'm Yvette, I'm the sewist. So I've been sewing my own garments since 2020, and I'm working with my husband Doug, who handily is a software engineer, app developer. So he does all the coding behind Stash Hub and I bring the sewing knowledge. So we originally met at university and we've been married for 7 years now, and it's just the two of us working on Stash Hub. So we do get a lot of questions of, oh, what's it like to work with your spouse? But luckily Doug is very patient. He's a very good team member and he works really, really hard on the Stash Hub app. So if you've got any technical questions, Doug will be answering those for you. So why did we start Stash Hub? So when I first started sewing in 2020, this was my first fabric haul. This was the extent of my stash. And as I'm sure a lot of you can relate to, the stash grows and grows over time. Even if you buy with a project in mind, you have to buy a new cupboard to store all your fabric because you just can't sew as quickly as you can buy. And I found it started to get quite overwhelming to keep on top of all the fabric and remember what I'd got, because as well, where I was sewing during the pandemic, I was buying my fabric online and there's a lot of information available about fabric online, and I wanted to keep that so I could learn more about fabric, but I just couldn't really find a solution that worked for me. So then Doug was like, maybe I could make an app for this. And that was the beginning of Stash Hub, and it became so good and so useful to me that we decided to roll out Stash Hub to the rest of the sewing community. So I'm very active in the sewing community, especially on Instagram, and I hear a lot of what people are talking about in the community, and the ideas around the stash I thought were quite interesting, because although it's really exciting to buy fabric and so, you know, fabric's so beautiful and it's such a privilege, there's also a lot of negative feeling around the idea of the stash. And people can often find their own stash quite overwhelming because there's just too much. And then they find it's difficult to organize it. Then it becomes a time sink trying to rummage through everything. And then it's just not inspiring. So it's just easier to buy new fabric than search through everything you've got, because your collection is just too daunting. And then there can be worries that build up that the stash is a burden either on yourself or even on your family members. And then this sense of guilt that comes just from having all this stuff that you're then not sewing. So our aim with Stash Hub is just to take away all of this negativity and help you fall in love with your stash. So here's an overview about Stash Hub and what you can do in the app. So the main part of Stash Hub is that you can catalogue your stash so that you know exactly what you've got and where it is. So you can catalogue your fabrics, including the lengths, widths, fabric types, any information that's useful about your fabrics, you can put that into Stash Hub. You can also record your patterns, so you're not accidentally buying patterns twice, or I know it can be quite tempting to buy the latest release of patterns, but you can check if you've already got a very similar pattern in your existing stash, and you can save your PDF and paper patterns and label them as such so you can check what format you've got each pattern in. You can also record notion types, and this section is great because it's really customizable. So if you're into something a bit different from the basic garment sewing you like, such as bra making or bag making that requires a lot of specific notions, you can actually add custom notion types into Stash Hub so that you can keep all of those findings in their own section. The next part of Stash Hub is that you compare all of your catalogue together to plan sewing projects. So you can join your patterns and fabrics together. You can insert your notions as well. I know I'm really bad at forgetting to put my labels into my garments. Then I can't remember what's the back if I've made a t-shirt. So you can save that in there and you can check that you've included all the things that you wanted in your project. You can also link it to your measurements. I know I don't write down my measurements everywhere, so I have to always get the tape measure out, even if I only measured myself yesterday. So you can record your measurements, but you can also record other people's measurements as well, which is great if you wanted to make something for somebody as a surprise. So if you've already got their measurements saved, you know that you're making the correct size. We've also got a section of challenges in Stash Hub. So if you go to the Discover tab, you can find out about new challenges that are happening each month in the sewing community, which is a great way to get involved in the community and also inspire your sewing as well. There might be a new idea that helps you discover a new way to use your stash. I know at the moment there's a lot of challenges in the community that you guys might be joining in with, such as Sew Yellow for Endo or the Sew Frugal challenge. So it might just push you to use your stash in a different way. The next part of Stash Hub is to encourage mindful shopping. I think there's a lot of talk in the sewing community about fabric bans, and I think that can work for some people, but other people, the shopping is a big part of the hobby. So we want to encourage people to keep shopping, to keep buying what they love, but just take a more mindful approach for it. So one of the ways you can do that in Stash Hub is to use the shopping list feature. So this will automatically add the notions that you need when you create a project. So when you're out, you can check what you need for specific projects and get what you need so you can actually complete those projects that you've got in mind. We also have a section where you can save your vouchers and gift cards. This is really handy if you get a gift card for Christmas, but you don't actually need any fabric then in there. So you don't feel like you have to panic and spend it right away. You've got it in your Stash Hub. You can add the code and then use it when you want. You're not going to lose it. It's not going to expire. And we've also got a brand new shop section where we are working on partnering with some of our favourite small indie businesses in the sewing community to bring you discounts. So if you already shop with those shops, then that's a really good way that you can also save money with Stash Hub. So now let's get on to talking about the benefits of Stash Hub. The first way is that using Stash Hub can help you save time in your sewing practice because you know exactly what you've got, where it is, and whether you've pre-washed it. I know I do forget if I wash it when I first buy it and then I don't sew it for ages, and how much you've got. So you can just quickly check in your Stash Hub if you've got a fabric already in your stash that would be perfect for your new project idea without having to rummage through loads of boxes, find if you've got the fabric, get it out, measure it, then have to refold it and make a huge mess. Stash Hub can also help create a bit of extra time in your day for thinking about sewing. So this lady's obviously looking at Stash Hub on her phone. That's why she's so happy. So you could plan sewing projects during your commute or just browse your stash whilst you're out and about, and you've created an extra bit of sewing time in your day when you're away from your sewing space. Save brain space is another great benefit of Stash Hub. I don't know if you guys can relate to these two pictures where you've got sewing plans and ideas just written down on random post-it notes or in different notebooks, and it's all a bit chaotic and you just need a better way of getting it organised. So our aim with Stash Hub is to create a sort of one-stop shop for everything sewing. So you've got, you know, your stash catalogue and your projects. You can put your notes in there. You can add details of your measurements so you can check them next time. So really, the idea of Stash Hub is just to keep everything there for you so you don't have to remember it. You don't have to hold all the pieces of fabric in your stash in your brain to think about them all the time. You can just put them in the app and then free up brain space for your creativity. You can think of new ideas. You can experiment with things. You don't have to be worrying about everything that you've already got and trying not to forget your ideas or remember which notebook you jotted it down in. Another great way that Stash Hub can help you out is it can actually help you save money. I don't know how many of you can relate to this situation where you get really excited during the pattern sales, you order a pattern and then you realize, oh no, I've already got this one. It is so frustrating and it's so easy to do, especially with PDF patterns. But with Stash Hub, you know exactly what you've got. You can do a quick search and then you know you won't buy it again. Another situation where you can waste money in sewing is to order fabric online and the fabric type is just really not what you're expecting. So Stash Hub can help you by firstly allowing you to search your patterns. So make sure that you don't buy the same thing twice. You can quickly look it up and then you're good to go. You can buy it in the sale if you don't already have it. The next way is to learn about fabric types. So this is what helps you to avoid those fabric buying mistakes online. If you look up a fabric weight, you can see if you've got another fabric in your stash that's a similar weight, so you can get a feel of what it's going to be like and if it might work for your project idea. You can also learn about fabric types. If you're not sure about the difference between like a twill and a crepe, you can see if you've got anything similar already in your stash. And also you can easily browse your fabric shop. It's basically your fabric stash. I mean, I just slipped up there because your stash is basically like a personalized shop. It's your own shop curated perfectly to your tastes, plus you already paid for it. So it's basically free. So you can just scroll through your Stash Hub instead of scrolling through all the online fabric shop drops on a Friday night. So you're not buying new fabric, you're just getting inspired by what you've already got. So now let's talk about some of my favorite features in Stash Hub. So the first one is magic input. This is something that is really bespoke to Stash Hub. You won't find this in any other app. Doug has especially developed this. So this came from talking to our users, and one of the things that held them back from using Stash Hub was worrying that it would take too much time to upload all of their stash to Stash Hub. So we have developed magic input, which allows you to add fabric in a matter of seconds. So what you do is you head to the fabric listing online, which has the lovely photos taken professionally, all the information that you could need. Then you can copy the URL, the web link, head back into Stash Hub and paste that URL into the box. Optionally, you can add the length that you've bought. You don't have to add that. You can even use magic input to add fabrics that you haven't bought yet, but you're thinking about for your wish list. Then you can select what photos you want, and then there it is. All the boxes are filled in. You didn't even have to type anything. It is amazing. And we've recently introduced this for patterns as well as fabric. So it's a great way to quickly upload your stash into Stash Hub. And I'd recommend that this is a great place to start if you're new to Stash Hub, to use magic input to add the fabrics that you've only just bought, because the web listings will still be available and those will be the fabrics that you're most inspired by right now. Another section of Stash Hub that I think is really exciting is the sewing stats. So I am originally a scientist. When Doug and I first met at university, we were actually both studying biochemistry, so very different from what we're doing now. So I do love a good stat, a good juicy bit of data, but I know a lot of people aren't put off by the sewing stats because they're worried about being faced with the number of fabrics that they've got in their stash. But I just want to take this moment to say it's not about the numbers. Like, the numbers don't matter at all, like about whether your stash is too big or not. Like, it's all about how you feel about it, and that is going to be different for each person as to what size stash works for you, because some people need a lot more inspiration to pull from and other people find that too overwhelming. So it's really, really personal to you. So I just want to say, don't compare your numbers to somebody else. But what I think is really the exciting part about sewing stats in Stash Hub is the qualitative data, like to see the types of colours, the types of projects you make, and you can also compare your stats from your patterns and fabrics into the projects to make sure that you're actually buying fabric that is the type of fabric that you do sew. So it's a really good way to check that you're buying things that you're actually interested in sewing. So if you look, this is genuinely the data from my stash, and you can see it's very, very heavily blue. So these are all the blue fabrics that make up like most of my stash. But I wear a lot of blue. I love sewing with blue, so I'm happy with that. That's my stats. That is how it is. So I'm really interested to see your guys' stats as well, to see everyone's different tastes. I just think it's really exciting to bring all that data together, and you might find out things that you didn't realize from just looking at the stash without getting all the data put together. So we offer 2 tiers of Stash Hub. So there is a free version of Stash Hub, which is great for beginners or if you've got a really small stash, and it just allows you to test out the app and see if you like it. So you can do magic input up to 20 times and add 1 image per record. But if you want to get the full benefits of Stash Hub, I would recommend subscribing to Stash Hub Plus. So you have unlimited records. So even if you've got a humongous stash, you can get that into Stash Hub. You can get organized. I believe in you. You can also use advanced filters if you want to filter through your stash to check if you've got like the right length and width of fabric for a project, for example, or a certain fabric type. You can add multiple images, and we've just added the option to add separately images for patterns and for line drawings and charts, so you can really split that out. And you can also use magic input unlimited times as well, because that is, like I said, the best way to add stuff. It's just so speedy. It's so awesome. So we offer options to subscribe monthly for about the price of a coffee, or yearly, which does work out a little bit cheaper for you guys. And overall, if using Stash Hub just prevents you from buying like a couple of duplicate patterns or 1 length of fabric, it's probably paid for itself already, and that's not including like the discounts from our new shops section. So we don't run any ads at all in Stash Hub. It's all funded by the subscription, and the subscription helps support me and Doug. We're both working on Stash Hub full time right now to bring you new updates all the time and really fun sewing content as well. So this is a timeline of some of the big updates that we've done onto Stash Hub. So let us know what your favorite updates have been. So we launched the beta test in July 2022, and before we'd even finished the beta test, we'd added the ability to pair patterns and fabrics as projects, because that was so highly requested by our users, and we just love listening to your feedback. It really helps shape the app. The tagline, the app for sewists by sewists, has in fact been vetoed by Doug because he said it's too cheesy and too overused, but that is the case. That's how Stash Hub works. We really listen to our community and all of your feedback. So one of our most recent updates is magic input for patterns, and it's really, really exciting. It's still getting better all the time, and we've got a really great Facebook group. So if you want to be part of shaping the future of Stash Hub, do join that group and let us know your thoughts. So yeah, I just want to touch, we've also got a web version, so you can use Stash Hub on your computer as well, which is great because you can see loads more of your fabric at once, and it's also much easier if you are typing stuff in as well. So community is really important to me, and I think it's at the heart of Stash Hub. I don't think I'd be sewing now if it wasn't for the sewing community. I came to this very Stitch Festival right at the start of my sewing journey, and I was so overwhelmed, but it was also so exciting. And just to see everyone who'd, made all their own clothes, see all the stalls, meet the business owners. So we really want to encourage community and join in with the sewing community. So one of the things that I do is host stash chats on our YouTube channel. So you might recognize some friendly faces, some familiar faces in this many-headed monster. So these are some of the guests that I've been lucky enough to talk to on Stash Chats, which is a series where I talk to members of the sewing community about their own stashes and their sewing journey. And it's just so interesting to see that everyone's got a different approach to buying fabric and keeping it, maintaining their stash, and also that they've come to sewing at different times in their life in different ways. So that's really exciting. If you want to have a little nosy into other people's stashes, do come and watch those episodes. So those are usually at 8 p.m. on Wednesday live, but you can also catch up with all the previous episodes on the Stash Hub YouTube channel. I've even done my own stash as well, so there's no secrets here. It's a really safe space to talk about your stash. There's no judgment. It's just really fun community to engage with everyone and hear your questions live. We've also got our Stash Hub Club on Facebook, which we've got over 1,000 members in our group now, and it's really good. If you've got any problems, if you get stuck on anything, often there's someone in the Facebook group that will get back to you like instantly before me and Doug can even see the post. And it's also a great place if you've got any requests or suggestions. We can workshop those in the community to help make the app just better and better all the time. And we're also on Instagram at stash_hub. So that's where I share the updates of who's coming on Stash Chats next. I share roundups of the monthly challenges that you can find in Stash Hub, and also tips about how you can get the most out of Stash Hub and how you can feel more confident and more organized in your sewing practice. So here's a link to our website, stashhubapp.com, and some reviews from our amazing customers. We're just so grateful to be a part of this wonderful community. And yeah, let us know if you've got any questions about Stash Hub. Our mission is really to help you fall in love with your stash. We don't want anyone to feel ashamed of all the beautiful fabric they've got. We just want you all to be feeling inspired to get sewing. And it's just, yeah, it's an honor to be part of this community. So thank you so much for welcoming us and supporting the app so far. And yeah, hopefully you'll hear a lot more from us in the future. Thanks very much.